Hey, what's up, everybody? BDL 44 coming at you another video. All right, so talking about Buddy Yield, because obviously the Lakers have had their eyes on Buddy Yield for a couple of years now, and it's been reported that his team, the Indiana Pacers, are ready to shop him. I think the Mavericks had some interest. We were talking about them yesterday. I encourage everybody to go check out my Mavericks video. I hadn't heard anything about him having some interest there or vice versa, but apparently the Pacers aren't interested in taking back the salary match for that on what's my man's name? Tim Hardaway Jr. Now, I didn't check out Tim Hardaway Jr.'s contract, but I know Buddy Yield is on an expiring contract at $19 million, and that is the problem. This is a situation where I think the solution, now I don't know if this is what would be possible in the NBA based on what the rules are, but I think in a perfect world, what you want to do with Buddy's contract is restructure it for more years and less paper. He's making $19 million. Turn that into 2 year, $9 million or something like that, or rather 2 years, 8 point, whatever it would, 9 point, whatever. I think that's kind of how you want that, so you can have a better salary match. Because what you don't want is for it to be such an expiring contract that teams are, it's so expensive that teams don't really want to bring it on, even though it would be expiring. It's the type of contract you want to get rid of at the trade deadline. But the problem is, most of the contracts that match the salary will likely be contracts on multiple year deals. So at that rate, when you're trying to match $19 million, you're usually going to bring back a contract on somebody that you don't want if you're the Pacers. Or, you know, the Indiana or the situation with the Mavericks is, if they don't want to re-sign him, or if they can't put an extra year on that deal or what have you, it doesn't really make any sense for the Mavericks to bring in a piece like that. So that's really kind of how I'm looking at the situation. I don't know if I'm looking at it correctly, but that's what I have in my mind's eye as I wake up to this news. It's like $19 million expiring would be attractive to some, but all they're going to really want to do at the beginning of the season is move it at the deadline so that they don't lose them for nothing. And a lot of times when you take out contracts at that amount, you have to pay taxes on this, as we've already said, having learned from the Russell Westbrook contract last year at $37 million. A lot of teams didn't want to bring it on because it was just going to be, they were going to have to pay almost twice that or something like that in taxes or something crazy. So it's one of those situations where I look at Buddy Yield and I say he's a solid shooter, but I don't know if there's a whole lot of upside to him. So you kind of bring him in if you need shooting. And in trying to make a trade for him, what's the match for that? Who wants to take on, give up whatever their contract would be to a player that amount? And would the Indiana Pacers be willing to take back that contract if it's likely for more years? If you split the money in half and add an extra year, you probably have easier matches in trying to find somebody who will take it from you. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I don't know if I'm looking at it correctly, but that's just me brainstorming the Buddy Yield situation. I think the Pacers have a better bet probably just trying to trade it at the trade deadline, given the fact that it is expiring. A lot of things could shake out as players start to move around. A lot of teams could come to the conclusion that their shooters can't shoot, and they're going to need a guy like Buddy Yield in their team a bit more than they think they do. A team that I think should probably be looking at Buddy Yield right now is the Miami Heat. Miami Heat should probably make a trade like that, get rid of whatever salary they can if the Indy Pacers would be willing to take back some salary and try to get that expiring contract on your deal. Slide Buddy Yield into your situation, and then at the end of the year, you have $19 million coming off your books to try to sign somebody. Because right now, the Miami Heat could use some assets, and that would be the way to acquire those assets at the end of this year. Not taking into account who else would be expiring or what else they got going on, but I just look at their situation as a team that can't make the trade they want to make for Dame Lillard. So now they're a bit incomplete. They could use an influx of talent right now. A lot of players that you thought the Miami Heat would go after, they just didn't land. Guys like Christian Wood, Kelly Oubre, who signed with the Sixers last week. I didn't report on that. Just, players like PJ Washington, who re-signed with the Charlotte Hornets. Those are the type of guys you thought would try to fill out the Miami Heat roster, and it just never happened. But I've heard nothing in regards to them having interest in Buddy. So Buddy. I don't know that he gets moved from the Pacers, and him at $19 million for one season is just not what people are going to be interested in. But the Mavericks are the team that's ultimately looking to do that, but the Pacers just don't want to bring back Tim Hardaway for whatever reason. And if I'm the Pacers, I understand that to a degree, because at the end of the day, if you're moving on from a fantastic shooter at that position, you don't want to bring in another shooter at that position on more years. It's more about addition by subtraction, so you can kind of fit in all that you have going on with all these guards that they've been picking up. And they got a lot of in the draft. Guys like Nembhard last year, Mathurin, Ben Shepherd, and a few other guys too that are really, really good they've picked up. So they just have a logjam at guard and a need for more space. They need addition by subtraction at Buddy's position so that they can kind of slide in some of them high talented young players and ultimately not have Buddy demanding minutes from the team in that regard. So that's really what it is. They got to make that contract make more sense for other teams. And while most teams will want an expiring contract at $19 million, nobody wants to pay Buddy Hield $19 million for one season, man. Nobody's going to want to do that. I'm sorry. It's just one of those situations where you don't universally look at him as somebody who's actually worth that right now. Now, granted, he's one of the best three-point shooters in the league, percentage-wise. He's really good. He's going to hit threes, and that's cool. But there are also other things about Buddy's game that doesn't necessarily find itself to be desirable. He's not as consistent, doesn't play defense as much, etc. So it's kind of like maybe that's a little much for him for one season. But all in all, I don't think it's going to become a situation where they just ultimately won't be able to move him at the deadline. The sooner we get to that moment, teams are going to realize they could use the expiring deal. They could use that money coming off of their books. And a lot of that type of stuff shakes out as the season progresses, I've already said. So, yeah, Buddy's in a tricky situation to a degree, unless new teams pop up and decide that they would be willing to take a chance on his $19 million contract. And the collective bargaining agreement, after having it change, we see more contracts being signed at higher deals. Obviously, we saw Jaylen Brown sign 300 plus. We understand that Anthony Davis signed at 280 something for a couple years, and we understand that Luka Doncic is up for $80 million a year if he were able to make an All NBA team. I believe it is. He would be up for that type of extension with the Mavericks. So it's like $19 million expiring isn't the same as it was maybe 2 years ago in regards to how expensive it is, but just the same, you have to match those salaries. And a lot of players on those salaries are, again, on multi-year deals. So you look at a guy like D'Angelo Russell. He's on a 2-year, I think, $20 million a year. And the Lakers would have wanted Buddy Hield, but not necessarily valuing him the same way. It's maybe we do D'Angelo Russell. And so I don't think that's a great trade for us, given the fact that Buddy's going to be looking to get his own shot. That's about it. D'Lo could get his shot, get others involved. Kind of just does a little more for you at the guard position. Buddy, you don't expect to do much more than shoot the three. And he can shoot it at a high clip. He can really score. But does that translate into him making others better or you winning and stuff like that? And that's been my criticism of Buddy Hield the entire time, while a lot of Laker Nation was rumoring to him being somebody that we just most, ultimately needed to have. I'm looking around, I'm saying, I don't see it. I never saw it. And so this is yet another one of those situations where I wake up this morning with reports basically saying that he doesn't have a trade market. And I'm saying, aren't you glad you didn't sign him? Because he doesn't have the value that you thought he did. And even though he would have filled a need, I am of the strong opinion that you do not bring in a player that you cannot trade on the market, because ultimately they're worthless. They may not be worthless to your team, and maybe you could play their value up, but if they're on the wrong type of contract, it just doubles down on the fact that they're not worth much. And so that's really what I'm looking at in regards to that particular piece. If he were on a contract that made a lot more sense to other teams, of course he would be a desirable player to have. It's not like you just don't want him as a shooter. He's a fantastic shooter, but for what he's being paid and for what he would likely expect to be re-signed at, you kind of just don't want him walking, and you likely see yourself having him walk if for some reason that goes down. So trading him at the trade deadline is the best bet for the Pacers. And until then, guys like Ben Shepherd and some of these other guys that they brought in are just going to have to sit. And that's ultimately what the Pacers do not want. And they definitely don't want to trade some of those young guards that they really believe in. You ain't trading them hard. You're not going to do that. So, yeah, the Pacers just got to wait this out. Teams are going to try to dump other contracts that they don't want onto the Pacers. Maybe the Pacers could couple Buddy Yield's contract with another more desirable piece, maybe a pick or something, and then you could kind of see yourself moving him. But as far as him bringing back somebody they actually want, nah, you're not going to be able to do that. I don't see it. I could be wrong. You could add him to a 3-team trade when Dame gets moved. I could totally see him being matched up for salary and then just dumped off to somebody else's picks are also being attached to the trade by default. Maybe a James Harden trade where picks are being attached by default. You could see him getting moved in a trade like that. But as far as something independent to himself, that's going to be difficult right now. So that's what I'm seeing there. And I was trying to figure out if there's something else I wanted to talk about in regards to this video. Of course, we've been talking about Dame Lillard. More has been said about the Toronto Raptors being interested. I've been seeing a lot of mock trades that are often drawn up by analysts or journalists who just kind of draw up their mock trade to give people something to talk about. But I keep telling y'all, man, as somebody who appreciates players with value and don't believe in bringing in guys that you can't retrade, a lot of these trades that I've been seeing for Dame Lillard attached a lot of guys like that, man. And you bring them to your team because they have a name. Once they get to your team, they can't do nothing for you because they're washed. This is a reality about a good portion of the league. And this is why I was getting on my Los Angeles Lakers about this 2 years ago. Stop bringing us guys that we can't retrade. Stop bringing us names that don't play like they used to play. You know what I mean? Role players that was around 10 years ago. They're not worth anything in today's market. You're not bringing them in to do anything but play 5 minutes a game and get hurt. And so that's kind of what's happening right now. And I don't want to disrespect some of these guys, even though I have already mentioned a bunch of names like that in the past. I don't want to just toss names out there, but I'm telling you, there's certain mock trades that we're seeing for the Toronto Raptors. They're going to be adding some players that don't have any value to try to make this Dame deal work. Philadelphia, same thing. Miami, not as much, honestly, because Miami doesn't have a whole lot of that. I think most of the players that they have really do hold value. They just don't have a lot of them. But, yeah, some of these trades, man, I'm telling y'all, if Portland does some of these deals, they're going to be taking back less than they think, some of these names. And so that's really the bottom line, man. You got to have real talent evaluators in your house, in-house rather, and you most definitely want to keep in mind that some of these dudes that you're bringing in really aren't better than some of the two-way guys that don't cost anything. You would much rather bring in a no-name guy on a two-way contract who has upside than some of these dudes that you have known for years that just have a name, man. I'll bring another one up. I'll bring a name up to give you an example. Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder, I believe, is retired, but he still gets mentioned in trade rumors and stuff like that. Up until last season, you would hear about him being in trade rumors. Got traded for what, 5 second-round picks, and came in and averaged 3 points for the Bucks. I mean, it's just like, yo, this is what I've been talking about. We got to identify who these names are now, and it changes every year because guys fall off a cliff, especially role players, and stop looking at them as desirables. You let them dudes go to China, and you bring in young prospects that can really go because they're out there, man. And the more these dudes you have on your team, the less of these prospects you can play. And I'm not saying Buddy's one of these guys, but that is the situation in Indy. Now, Indy got a bunch of them young prospects that they can't wait to see what they can do. And they can't play him because they got Buddy in the way. And this is the problem that a lot of these teams have. And they end up desiring these players because they have a name. Oh, he's a pro. Yeah, it's a pro. No, he's gone, man. Send him to Australia and bring in one of these young guys that you know can double and triple in value. And if they happen to not work out, swap them for some more young guys who could double, triple in value. Half of these teams don't even go more than 8 deep, and it's because they keep overpaying for dudes that are long been weak. It is time for this to be understood. I'm telling y'all, out with the old, man. Half of the role players from yesteryear, if they still running around and they only averaging 3 points a game, and you want to pay them $5 million, $6, $7 million a year just because of who they are as a name, I guarantee you that's the problem you're gonna have. You're gonna keep seeing the people like the Lakers come up with Austin Reeves and Demoy Hodges and Alex Fudge. These are the dudes that should be on your team. Why you sitting up here trying to sign old man Green or whoever? No, man, you don't want him on your team no more. Dude is washed. Bring in somebody who can actually double or triple in value, and that's how you end up getting the picks that you want, the second round pick equity that you want. Players that can come in and play positions and ultimately average more than what you ever would have thought. If you're not looking to blow up something or double up something in value in the NBA, you're doing it wrong. And that's how half of these teams end up being shallow. They end up not being very good, end up fizzling out after an injury or two. They end up having no depth because they have no vision. They just keep wanting to recycle all these old agent clients. And I'm telling you, these agents are getting over on y'all. These dudes suck now. That's it. Like, literally. So we need to start identifying who these players are. Look out for that. I tell everybody on my channel, look out for who's on your team that's taking up some of your salary, who's been around for too long and ain't doing nothing no more. These are the guys that you need to stop valuing. These are the guys that you need to understand that you cannot trade to other teams unless you have a GM and an owner that doesn't know any better. And he gonna keep on wanting these guys, and they gonna have the problems that you have. No more. Clippers got a lot of these dudes. It's a couple teams, man. I'm telling y'all, they got plenty of these dudes, and they keep signing them. The Golden State Warriors got a bunch of them dudes, and no, it's not the main names. It's the ones on the back of the bench. They got to let them dudes go. You know, Mike Dinwiddie's doing a hell of a job bringing in a bunch of dudes that can't play no more. I'm being honest. I don't expect nothing from them. You know, it's a couple of these teams, man, they just don't get it. The Clippers, plenty of them. They got a bunch of them on the back of their bench, and they trying to trade them, and they can't. You know, and it's just, I know better. Stop re-signing old agent clients. I'm telling y'all, they're getting over on you. The agents need to start looking into some of these young players, just like I'm telling you. That's your ticket. Because if you're the one bringing them guys who can actually play, who are coming out of nowhere, then you're actually a value to your teams. Not continuing to sell them old dreams. These guys ain't no good no more, man. I'm just being honest. And this ain't a new conversation on this channel, but I'm getting tired of it. As a fantasy basketball fan, I'm getting tired of it. Because when I start to look for players in these super deep teams that I draft, I'm skipping over all these middle names because I know they can't turn into nothing. And I'm taking rookies. I'm going to the back of the bench of a Bucks, and I'm taking Wigginton because I already know what he can do. He just needs an opportunity. Andrew Nembhard needs an opportunity. You know, get the young guys going, man. You got all the rookies and youngsters are the ones that ultimately, you know, can ascend in value. And if they happen not to suck, guess what? New ones are coming next year. But no more of these old men. No country for old men, man. No more. Got to move on from those guys, man. So that's something that I've been looking at these mock trades. I'm like, you trying to tell me that that's somebody I actually want? You trying to slop together about 5 of them washed up dudes, and you go try to move him with like 2 picks for Dame. And I'm looking in the comment section, and then people are like, yeah, that's a good trade. Oh my God, they're gutting their whole team. No, they're getting rid of guys they need to get rid of so they can bring in some Austin Reeveses, man. So they can bring in some young guys, bro, who can actually go. So that is really what I have to say. I know it's harsh, but I know what I'm talking about. Once you bring one of these dudes in and they can't do nothing for you, and you try to retrade them, you're getting nothing. And when you try to play them, they doing nothing. BDL44, I'll thank you all for watching. I'm out.